On today's episode of Gathering the Kings.
I think anyone looking back on themselves just needs to be really kind to themselves.
Yeah.
We did the best we could with what we knew and what we had to work with.
Yep.
And there may have been things that I should have done better, or I should have taken bigger risks, or I should have
Sure.
left that company earlier. Of course,
Right.
I made a million mistakes, but also we also just man, we judge, oneself so hard all the time, and we need to be really, really kind to ourselves and our past selves that we've done the best we could.
Yeah. There's no rewriting those chapters now, right?
Yeah. So I'm
Good
sorry,
stuff.
it's not like a good soundbite answer.
You are listening to Gathering the Kings with Chaz Wolfe, featuring fellow 7, 8, and even 9-figure business owners who have real battle scars from business and life, but have prevailed as the king that they are designed to be. We welcome high-performing entrepreneurs to the stage in order to reveal the real of the real on what it takes to build a successful business today. We dissect the good and bad decisions they've made along the way that give a true and accurate picture of the journey of success and how you too can get there. Through this dialogue, you will learn the value of growing your network and surrounding yourself with power players and kings like today's guest. Grab your pen and notebook because we're about to dive in.
What's up, everybody? I'm Chaz Wolfe, Gathering the Kings podcast. I'm your host. Today, I've got a queen joining us at the King stage, Louise Fritjofsson. How are you today?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm wonderful. Now that I've got a little bit of rhythm with your name, I feel like I could just go to Sweden
Crushing
and
it.
fit right in.
Oh yeah. No. You're crushing it.
Yeah.
You're doing it.
I appreciate you making me feel really good about that.
It's a
That's step
tricky
one. Stroking the ego, appreciate that. Thank you. But I'm so excited for this conversation. You've got an incredibly cool business. I want to get to all kinds of questions that I have for you, but I always like to mention, having the queens on the stage. We've had lots of queens on the stage at this point, but for the listener, there's queens like you out there getting stuff done. And so what I like to say is, kingship or the king mindset is mindset. It's not masculine. You're out there doing the royalty thing. And so I just so appreciate you being here. Tell us what kind of business that you have.
Thank you. So I'm co-founder and CEO of Martie.com. We're an online grocery store that helps you save big when saving foods. Me and my co-founder came in and launched this business about 14 months ago. It's my fourth company. So I previously had e-commerce, ad network, and marketplace companies.
Wow.
And just before this, 5 years ago, I decided that I wanted to really focus my time on the food industry. So it took me a minute to figure out where the big opportunity was, to find my co-founder. We were dabbling with a few other things, me and my co-founder, prior to this, launching a few food brands, learning everything I could about the food industry, and really ran into that issue of surplus inventory. So here's the thing, 30 to 40% of foods actually go to landfill. They're tossed away, even though they're perfectly fine to consume.
Wow.
And on the flip side, we have 42 million Americans that are food insecure. So Martie really is a play here to solve affordable food and a sustainable food system. So we're really using that one problem we have, flipping it to be a solution for the other. So with Martie.com, you get 40 to 70% off on foods you love, brands you know. So, it's never been a better time to try and get people more affordable food. And it's fun, we make sustainability both affordable and really fun, like a treasure hunt.
I love what you just said there, because not a lot of people think about food being fun and more so survival, especially in the way that you're doing it. You're literally solving two huge problems, but you label it with fun. Is that a core value? Where does that come from?
Yeah. So I'm thinking about Martie like I'm building the IKEA of foods.
Okay.
And what I mean with that is we all know that IKEA is affordable, it's for the many people, but it's also modern and cool. You never feel ashamed to have an IKEA furniture or utility in your house. And Martie should be that for food. And what we're doing here is we're building a family-friendly company, a modern and cool with design, a kid-friendly. So it is fun, it is surprising, and the type of inventory we get, once it's gone, it's gone. So there's a level of FOMO. If we have your favorite chocolate, get it now, and maybe a few cases, because when it's gone, it's gone. Everything is
Yeah.
here to save foods. So it becomes this like fun treasure hunt, and it's like
Yeah.
a surprise and delight experience.
Interesting. I love the treasure hunt, the surprise and delight, all that language, because you're right. It takes, grocery shopping to a whole nother level of maybe not going. I can even think of like our family. There's a lot of the same things that we eat over and over because that's what's easy when you have kids and a
Yeah.
particular husband. But this almost like joy, this like binge of like, let's see what we can find today. How do we mix it up a little bit?
Yeah. Yeah, it's fun. And we're really trying to make sure that you can get, your monthly staples. We want to make sure that you trust us to get your coffee and your pasta sauces at, 70% off. Why wouldn't you? But
Yeah.
yeah, then maybe getting that treat that maybe you can't afford when it's at Whole Foods and all of a sudden we have it at an,
Yeah.
accessible price point. That's fun.
Yeah.
So you
Yeah.
can start treating yourself with items that maybe was out of reach before, since you're
Yeah.
saving so much on your staples.
Exactly. Well, my first major question for you here, Luis, is that same for all my guests. I want to know the bigger picture for you. You're 4 companies in. You're clearly a sharp mind. This is probably not going to be your last company either. Your husband, you said, is an investor. Yeah, I can only imagine the frequency that your house is operating at. But why? What's the bigger picture for you? Why are you doing this? Is it Martie? Is it something bigger? Give us the little insight here.
And to be clear, my husband is not an investor in my company. I have other investors,
Right.
but
Yeah.
he's a tech investor, which is really cool. So we share a lot of the same worlds. Listen, I think there's one level of just like, I love the process, the creativity, the problem solving. I just feel so honored that I can do what I do on a daily basis. I get to choose my team. I get to hire the best people in each of their respective areas and just work with really high performing people.
Yeah.
And just the idea and the notion that we're solving big problems is definitely what drives me most today. So that has changed over my years. It's
Okay.
really interesting to think back. I started my first company when I was 19. And I do think many people, just as I did when I was 19, thought that sort of like, the monetary aspect of things was the big driver.
Right.
And truthfully, I'm still very pleased when I can take care of my extended family and my friends, and that is a big driver for me. So
Yeah.
I take a lot of pleasure in making sure that I can take care of people financially. But I came to a screeching halt in the company that I was running when I was 26, because really that company was lacking a vision or a mission that was more than just making money and having higher revenue and net margins.
Sure.
And I started taking the business into areas where actually the business was thriving, but me as a CEO was missing something else. So I started taking it into new avenues to fill what I needed to do. Not a good idea.
Got it.
So I ended up leaving, and I ended up really doing some deep work and trying to figure out what kind of company and vision and mission do I need to really keep going. And that has evolved in a few different, what it looks like since. But I'm really, really here to build companies that make people healthier. So I know that as a mission for myself needs to stay true in the companies that I work with.
Yeah, I mean, I think you gave us like a really true picture of the gamut there for you as far as like the journey, because you're right. There's a level that you have to take care of yourself. Money is important to a degree, but it eventually becomes bigger than that. It has to, right? Because you realize pretty quickly that it's pretty easy to make money. You know?
And it's a lot of work to run a company. So
yeah. You
you
start
can make
asking
money.
yourself,
I
it's
feel
worth
like
it.
you can. Yeah, I feel like you can make money easier ways than running a company at times.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, it's got to be about something bigger. The health perspective, even just this being able to kind of pick your environment and pick the people that are around you. I think all those were just incredible answers. I think that, relatable to me for sure, because it has to be, it's got to be something that pushes us forward or pulls us forward, however you think, either push or pull. But, there's got to be something that we're going for. This, I don't know, this perspective of being grateful, but not done.
Right. Yeah.
Well, let's talk about your journey, into your 4th company. Like maybe let's reverse it all the way to 19. What was that company, or how did you even get involved? Like entrepreneurialism, how did you clash together?
So I've had this question a few times, and I just want to say, I love hearing some of these entrepreneurs being like, when I was 12, I was selling lemonade on the streets. I think way more people were selling lemonades on the street than people starting companies. So I just,
Yeah.
sometimes people dig deep, and that's great. But truthfully, I started working for what we today call a startup when I was 18, 19. This is like 16 years ago. So they were not called a startup. They were not cool. Everyone was like, what are you doing and why are you there? There is
Right.
no perks. Like what today,
Right.
what we say working for startups is very different.
Yeah.
But it was really cool. And I just felt right at home. I was part of the small team at like school. I knew nothing, but still I was like making stuff happen. And I
Yeah.
was an important part of building this company with a very small team. And it just really, really felt like such an eye-opening experience. And
Yeah.
it gave me a lot of confidence to say,
Okay.
well, if I can do this for you, I can do this for me too. I don't have to be hired by a startup to run a startup, because that's essentially what I felt like I was doing.
Got it.
So that initial experience of being hired by
Yeah.
another entrepreneur, seeing it up close. Again, this is not in the newspapers at this time. This is not what people are striving
Right.
to do. So I really hadn't thought of tech as a world or startups as a world before then.
Right.
And this was a really weird like web push trying to do something on the internet. I couldn't even explain it today because it's so far from what we know works today. Came out of that. Yeah, it's a different world. But I came out of that and I launched an e-commerce company. And again, like we didn't have Shopify like we didn't have
Right.
Facebook and Google and all the marketing tools that we have. So it was a very different experience. But I launched an e-commerce that I had that acquired after 2 years. One of the issues and problems that I had was marketing, because I had to go to like 20 different websites and buy banner spaces.
Right.
Because again, we didn't have what we use as marketing tools today.
Right.
So coming out of the e-commerce company, I launched an ad network. And I ran that for a period of 5 years, took that to 5 countries in Europe. And in that time started, dabbling with ad tech and like bigger media company type of holdings. And that's the company when, I was 26, I kind of came to a conclusion that I needed to go and do something else. It was a beautiful company that made good money, but it wasn't necessarily scalable to the companies that I wanted to build. It didn't have the mission and the vision.
Sure.
So I stayed on as chair board, and I stayed on as shareholder, and I just sold that company last year.
Okay.
So
Wow.
had it in holding for like a good 12 years, which, great team, such a fun journey. So really nice to put a bow on that journey too in the end. And coming out of that, I was kind of like, had this vision and mission in my mind then that I really want to build companies that make people healthier. So my first stab at that was to build a peer-to-peer marketplace for fitness. So we built this app, Uber for Fitness. Anyone that was good in sport or workout could share it in the app. We raised capital. All of these 3 companies were out of Sweden. So raised capital for that one in Europe. That's the company that actually moved me to San Francisco about 9 years ago.
Wow.
And if you want to do like a podcast on like, why does peer-to-peer marketplaces why don't they work?
You got all the
have
answers,
content
huh?
for weeks. I have a lot of questions. I don't know if I have the answers, but I have a lot of thoughts and opinions. We really tried. We got 250 bookings in the platform a day after just 6 months. So like the demand was there, but keeping a supply side to do what they're supposed to do was really hard.
Yeah.
And I think we've seen that with so many peer-to-peer marketplaces. Like people have tried to do home cleanings for different types of services. And as soon as you like rely on one specific person showing up, the model kind of breaks.
Yep.
So that happened to us too. And in the end, we needed to pivot to being a SaaS platform, and we found a soft landing. And that company really, one of the big learnings was like really getting in and say, we need more people active. We're going to help them to move.
Sure.
It's really clear coming out on the other side, feeling like, well, if you don't eat what you're supposed to, like working out doesn't matter. So that what brought me into food and really had me start thinking about food as an industry and what can I build in food that can be sizable and big and have an impact.
Yeah.
And on that journey, we ran into this huge sustainability issue of so much food just being tossed away. And then on the other side, really thinking, yeah, people need to eat healthier, but also people are just struggling to actually put food on the table.
Right.
Let's solve the biggest problem first, and then we can evolve to making sure that they also eat super healthy,
Yeah.
So what I've done when you look at it from like a high level feels like there's so many different things, but the one thing really led into understanding a challenge or a big problem that needs solving for my next venture and where I went with it.
Yeah, I was just going to say the same thing, that it actually is a beautiful picture of one thing leading to the next. And you got into an industry, realized that there's a problem over here, and you've been jumping problems, which is fantastic. This is what problem solvers do. But I want to just encourage the listener through this. And I want to know your opinion on this, because sometimes, as a business owner, like, we're committed, we're all in, right? But what you said earlier really hit with me, because I've related to it myself, even in my own, multiple industries and different businesses that I've done. We have different vehicles. Like, you've got your Toyota and you got your Corvette, or whatever, depiction that you want to give here. And so in essence, when you realize that this isn't the vehicle for me, it wasn't going to scale as big as I wanted to, or get the ultimate result that I was hoping for. Is that like a shameful moment of like, oh, like now I have to change or switch? Or is it like, I have to give up this team? I mean, you held on to that company for 12 years. It was a great team, like, but there was bigger or maybe better or just different things for you, a different vehicle. So if someone's contemplating this and thinking like, okay, well, maybe I'm in this business now, but maybe I won't always be. Is that kind of how it rolls for entrepreneurs? Give us some insight there.
So I have a few different experiences with this. My first company, it was a great start because I had this e-com. It was acquired after 2 years, like my first stab at it. So I rolled into the next, just thinking this will be better and bigger and all the things. Yeah, it was a beautiful company. But I should probably have left earlier than what I did. I think it was still okay. I probably could have left 6 months earlier, not keeping on to that CEO role. But it's hard. It's your baby and it's your team. And how that company really came to, like, when I decided I needed to hire someone else and move on, I was already really deep in this other idea. It was almost like, instead of like breaking up and taking time and finding your new love, I was like already in love when I was like, okay, I have something else here that has the vision and mission and like all the excitement of it could be a unicorn kind of. So in that sense, it was when I made the decision to leave my second company as an operator, it was easy. And again, I probably could have done like an earlier cut and had some time in between, but I was 26 and it was what I needed to do. With my third company, and again, my second company later was acquired, like, and I left on a good note and stayed involved with the team. So everything felt really good for me.
Sure.
My third company, when we needed to pivot and it got really hard, I should have let go of that company a lot earlier. As many other, to your point, I think as an entrepreneur, one of the things that we have is stamina, because it is hard.
Yeah.
It's a lot of work, lots of ups and downs. And I think one of the strongest skills that many entrepreneurs have is just grit and stamina.
Yeah.
And that makes it really harder when, so my second company was working really well, just I needed something different. And that is not as shameful. That's like you're moving on to something bigger. I think my third company, I should have just walked away at one point. And I pushed through and I spent probably a year more than I should have to like land in this new pivot and find a soft landing for that company. And I think wanted to prove to myself and maybe everyone else that like I could do it. And like it happened. But if I had used that year for myself, for my own purposes, to something else, that time would have been better used for me. So, and it's hard when you have, with that company, I had external investors. I want to make sure that I showed that I cared about them and, all the things. But that's a really hard, taking a hard look at yourself in the mirror when things are not going as well, and kind of like killing your darling is hard. And I think it's one of the most important things that we can do, because we only have so many years to really do something with our time.
Yeah. The vulnerability that you just shared, I think, is incredible, of being able to like not only reflect, but then to be honest with yourself about how one worked and how the other one maybe not so much at that time. I think every entrepreneur struggles with this idea of I got a lot of thoughts, I got a lot of ideas, a lot of, unicorns, possibilities. And so some of it's like, disseminating like which one's the best. And then I pick, and then there's like, okay, I got to commit to this for a while. Cause if I do like 2 or 3 things at the same time, that's not good either. So for you, would you say that it was like this, I just feel like you've just ascended kind of each time, towards this greater vision of what you have? Is that because you know exactly where you're going, or this clarity of like, oh, I want this type of business or this type of outcome? Or has that just developed over the course of time? Like, how does someone know maybe when to tug and pull? You know what I mean?
That's a good question. And listen, when I decided that I wanted to do something in food, this is, I think, a good example of like nothing is a clear path. But that's just a personal opinion. I actually, side note, I think when people have like, when they introduce their partner, like, oh yeah, love at first sight, I'm like, no, there's more here. But there's never a straight line.
Right. That's right. Not for entrepreneurs, at least.
No. And I started focusing on sort of like the food industry 5 years ago. And I took 3 years and I MVP'd a ton of different things. So I launched a food brand. I started working with influencers and like producing things for them. I can't even remember. I had a lot of things going on.
Yeah.
And as I, every and I kind of knew like I need to just like MVP a few things. Like nothing can be precious. Things just need to get out there in the ether, and we'll see what sticks or not. Like throwing spaghetti on the wall and see what sticks is the thing.
Yeah.
And sometimes you just need to give yourself time. You need to be really quick on cutting things that don't work, right?
Yeah.
So I gave myself permission to do that for like a period of 3 years. And towards the end of that, I found my co-founder Kari. And that was like a big unlock to me. So I was like, all right, I have my person.
Yep.
And I knew I wanted a co-founder on my next adventure. And that spun up the process of like another test, and that led to Martie. So long-winded way of saying, I think giving yourself permission, especially when you're starting out, to like think of things as MVPs. And just really like give them a run for a period of time, being really like clear with yourself on what goals and KPIs and targets you want to hit, if to decide if it's successful or not. And that's very helpful to do before you start a test, because otherwise you can get in love with your own idea. And even though it's not working, it's really hard to quit. And then you're, it just never ending. So setting up targets, setting up KPIs and goals, giving yourself permission for a period of time to achieve those. And if not, cut it and move on. If you're looking for a business idea, I think is a very smart way of approaching things. And I also think like when you're in MVP stage, you can actually test a few things at the same time if you want to just like learn more, and if you're organized enough to do multiple things.
Yeah. I mean, it's an incredible answer. I hope that the listener is taking good notes, because I think that for the most part, there's a lot of entrepreneurs that have a lot of ideas, right? Or maybe a lot of passions, a lot of like, I could go this way, I could go that way. And so you're right. We kind of do need to do this like a little bit of a shake and determine which way we need to go. At some point though, like you said, you have to kind of determine, okay, so like this one's starting to get some legs. I need to kind of cut away all the other distractions at that point. So you kind of identify, set some targets. And then even at that point, there may still be a take it out back and let her go type of a thing, because you already mentioned that before. What, like in that dissemination of like, okay, I got a couple of things, I got a couple ideas. What for you were you looking for that then you were like, okay, like now this has legs? What were some of those maybe key factors that you were looking for that like, this is the scenario we want to go in?
I mean, truthfully, like, I think you, if you want to test an idea, KPIs, like deciding beforehand. So like for Martie, for instance, an easy test on like, are people converting? Like you can do really easy tests. Buy a few impressions with an ad and have a landing page and see if people click through and buy. And if you have time to like be live with the test for like 2 months, are they coming back to buy again?
Right.
If you don't have inventory that is real, you can even like fake it, have like a business name and a site that once you try to buy, the site breaks, but you get the data, right? So there's, depending on like the business, you can decide what actual data and tests you want to look at. But then also, truthfully, it's like a gut feel, right? So as any entrepreneur, you will talk with all your friends and all your business contacts. And I actually think one of my superpowers is I find the right people to talk to. So I didn't know anyone with the online, grocery industry before starting Martie. And in the first month, I feel like I talked to all of the main investors in the space, all of the main entrepreneurs in the space, the first hires of some of the big successes, and getting their feedback and their view on the market would also like give you a gut feel for what's the opportunity and what's the space in the market to grow a big company. So yeah, I think that's like kind of like the 3 pillars of my decision tree when I'm looking at go or no.
So good. So good. It's funny because I was, obviously I've got a layout here for the show and I asked some of the questions pretty directly to some of the hosts, but we've gone through these good, bad, what type of discipline do you have in your decision making? We've gone through all of these just through our natural conversations. I just so appreciate just your flow of thinking. It's super inspiring, but I hope that the listeners paying close attention because you're dropping like super practical things for them to be able to implement inside their business. So I want to ask you a question regarding traits and character. I want to give you 2 questions around this. I want for you particularly as a business owner and a serial entrepreneur at this point, what has been a trait that you feel like you have that's unexpectedly kept you away from success?
So I was just going to make a reference again to like your partner and your your relationships in life, but it's kind of like when you think of your partner, the things that you love most about them is usually the things that tick you off most as well.
That's right.
It's like what makes them unique, right? And same goes for you, right? So things that like actually are like your superpowers can also flip on its side and hold you back. And we've already talked about stamina, and it is one of these things of being like very, very committed to see something through and very bullish on things can be a superpower, but it can also definitely hold you back from moving on or like closing a chapter or stop the testing, So that can definitely be one of the things. Again, like actually something that can be really powerful is I move really, really fast. And I can see something and I find a solution and I'm like, I move fast, like figure it out. And that comes in super handy really early in a business.
Right.
And later on, when you have a bigger team and you need more structure and just a different type of processes, this can come back and bite you in a way that it's not as helpful anymore.
Yeah.
And I've heard that from team members, right? Like, you need to tell us where we're going. You're like running and we don't know what's happening. Kind of like, it's almost like not taking time to really have everyone digest a decision that has been made or like where we're going to go next. So I think those are my 2 things that I keep working on. And listen, I've worked on these 2 things the last 15 years. So
that's honest.
It's just when it's a strong personality traits, it's tricky, but I'm very aware of them. So I think those are probably the 2 main ones that I think of when I hear that question.
Yeah, that's super good. I think that the honesty there is what comes through because first off, you've referenced the word stamina, but like what that means is that, like you said, like I'm in and I'm right here and we're not going anywhere until we figure out this problem. And there's a stick-to-itiveness, a persistence, as you said, that some people just don't have. And man, especially if you're trying to lead a team and you're all in on this problem and you're trying to get it done. And some people are looking at you like you're crazy because you're up early, up late, dialed in and focused all day long. And they kind of wonder, how do you do it? It's a little bit unrelatable sometimes. And so you're right. That can be definitely a downfall, but it's the exact reason why it was successful. So I loved how you gave that left and right perspective.
Yeah. And again, I think for me, it can definitely lead to like, again, not letting go early enough and like pushing a bit further on things that maybe need to get let go of. But
which is actually interesting now that I really think about what you're saying. This fast moving, like quick decision making person doesn't necessarily follow through a whole lot. Actually, usually they're kind of like, big visionary, big vision, big picture, and then like I need someone else to cross all the T's. But I hear you saying that you got the vision. You're actually behind executing and crossing T's and dotting I's, which is just going to lead into my other question here. But am I picking up? Is that something that you feel like you do well, or is this?
Yes or no? Yes or no? I think. Listen, I definitely like one of the major like working with my co-founder. She's a great T crosser.
Okay.
She's so organized and like it. I'm so lucky to have her and the rest of my team. So
Sure.
I think for sure I can like stir up dust and just like, here's the big picture. That's where we're gonna run. And like, I do have a team who's like, well, what does it mean? Like,
Right.
to like get all the details in a row that maybe I, missed or didn't think of. But then the stamina, like I will keep running until we hit that goal. So
Right.
definitely follow through, but like not necessarily as detail organized that as I maybe would like to be. But thankfully I have people around me that are very detail organized. Yeah.
Yeah, that's incredible. That was going to be my next question. What character traits does your co-founder have that you feel like has complemented you well? You've kind of led to some of those things. Would you say anything if I gave you an opportunity to just promote her for a half second about what the relationship there and how the dynamic works between the two of you?
There's many cool things with Kari. One of the coolest is when you look at Martie.com, it looks so good. And she's like a whiz when it comes to running a design team, like creating a look and feel for a CPG brand. She's probably one of the best we have in the entire US. Like she's incredible. Wow. So like super artistic, but also very organized. And we have that partnership where number one is just like a beautiful support system. So again, I'm so happy to have her. I've had a few different co-founders and I just struck like gold with Kari. We understand each other and it's, it's a very tight partnership. And I run fast. We've talked about that, like big vision, like moving fast. And she's definitely more organized and making sure like, did we think of X, Y, and Z? So that's when we look at like how we divide and conquer, just like our teams too. She's on the operations part. I'm on the marketing, sales, like buying side. So that kind of like sets a lot of like where we thrive and the teams that we run.
Did you know that ahead of time? You said, I knew I wanted a co-founder. Did you have this picture of this person and then being able to operate those sides of the business? And then the second question to that would be, would you be where you are today, the speed that you've gotten to where you are with Martie, if you had done it on your own?
No, let's start with that. I wouldn't know. I've started companies alone. I've been like a sole CEO and it sucks. And no, you don't get the same speed. I think what a co-founder gives you is like that one person that you can always have a fully transparent and honest conversation with. And that itself unlocks all of the questions that you need to ask and someone else needs to ask to like figure out the right path. So no, I would definitely not. I don't know how I would have gotten anywhere. This is a big project and a very heavy lift to run Martie with all the operations that goes out to just like sending a box out with all the groceries that one person would buy. So no, like I'm so lucky to have her. And it's cool. I was introduced to Kari by kind of like a mutual friend.
Okay.
That she actually is a recruiter. And I wanted to hire her to find someone, but I'm like, I don't know what I'm going to do yet. So I can't pay you to find a co-founder when I don't really know what I'm doing yet. And she called me up a few weeks later. She's like, you just need to meet Kari. I'm not going to charge you. I think this is a perfect match. So she knows what she's doing. It was a pretty amazing match. And the first time I meet Kari is at a coffee shop and we have a conversation of like the food industry and some things that I've been testing and some ideas. And I had this one food company going and she just looks at me. She's like, I can help you. I can help you. I'm your girl. And just meeting someone that's that confident. I knew from the beginning, this would be a pretty cool partnership.
So you mentioned earlier, there's no such thing as love at first sight, but was there love at first sight with you and Kari?
Kind of. Yeah. I was very impressed.
That's awesome. Well, I mean, when you're an executor like she is, I mean, what's there not to be impressed with? It sounds like so.
It's very impressive meeting these high achievers that come in like that. Yeah.
Especially as visionaries, they have a lot of things that we know that we don't. So it even more impressive for them to be able to do those things that we know that we wish we were better at, but that they do so well and so naturally. So that's great. We're going to switch over to the speed round here. I'm going to ask you a question about your KPIs. The way I like to say it is, if you could only track one thing inside of Martie, what would it be?
Retention. People come back again and again. Like if you have a cycle of repeatables, things work. I think for my business, which is a consumer facing e-commerce, I think that is the most important KPI, to know that we're crafting experience that can grow.
Yeah, for a lot of businesses, but for yours specifically, for you to be able to double and triple and quadruple and 100x, you're going to have those same people coming back time and time again.
Like if you don't have, returning customers, you're not going to see, like, that also tips over to having word of mouth, organic growth, like people are happy. So it just tells you way more than just the repeatables, I think, of just, are you nailing the customer experience? The
customer experience. I mean, we'll probably do a whole podcast just on that, but you just trickled in some really, really important nuggets. But when you have an experience, as opposed to just like click, I got my food, it was like, meh, but like when I, oh no, it was Martie. And I remember the experience, and I went treasure hunting or whatever this experience is. Do you guys think about like a feeling that you want to leave your customer with? Is it like what they walk away with? Like, give us just a little insight there.
Yeah. When you win on the lottery, that's what you should feel like. Like, I promise, anytime you shop at Martie, you save 50% on like average for what you spend at the grocery store. And if you just let that sink in and you start seeing like the savings you can get in a year, and we get all the big brands, and like really, we also have like a huge organic section and all the good stuff that you want to get. Like you should feel like you won the lottery. Like, wow, I got all these great stuff for this price, and I'm saving the world. It's like you should feel really good about yourself. So, and we've been thinking about this a lot, because today, shopping affordable foods, going to the $1 store, it's not going to get you that feeling. Like it's just not. And the types of foods that the $1 store sells is not necessarily it's that you would feel great about serving your family either. So again, I think, the IKEA foods is like a good mantra to me, because I do feel like people go to IKEA, they shop affordable, but they also feel great because it looks good, it's modern, it's cool. I want that feeling to hit you when your Martie box that's on your porch. You're just like, man, I did something great for the environment without even trying. And I'm getting awarded for it because I'm saving so much money. So so we're thinking through that in our coffee, in our design, that is playful and fun. So that's kind of our own mantra, like trying to craft this experience.
Yeah, experience can mean so many things. We did a great job giving us that immediate word picture. That's what I want to point out to the listener. When I asked about the experience, you gave me a word picture of, do you know what it feels like when you win the lottery? And immediately everyone's like, oh yeah. I mean, well, maybe I haven't won the lottery, but I can only imagine the incredible feeling it would be to be like, whoa, I won, and that immediately took us to that place. And so I think that it gave just a great depiction of how the listener can do it for their own business. What resource or maybe book would you recommend for a business owner looking to grow this year?
Okay, so this might be a wild one, but I'm thinking The Obstacle is the Way.
Okay.
I think his name is Ryan Holiday. It's this book about really, it's a Greek, like old time, like philosophy, stoicism, really flipping the side of like the challenges that you run into, maybe your opportunities. So it's all about like shifting your thinking of like, instead of being stuck in challenges and problems that occurs, how can you flip that to being like, either don't let it touch you, just move on to something that actually is something that you can have an effect on. So don't touch anything that is beyond your control. Don't spend any, headspace getting muddled with that, and just focus on what you actually can control and use that to your advantage. And I'm saying that because again, like running a company is hard, and there's so many books of like Good to Great and like all the classics, but I think headspace and like mental well-being, making sure that you take care of yourself, making sure that you're not like, there's a lot of pressure, there's a lot of stress, and how you manage and handle that is going to affect your own efficiency and your impact with the work that you're doing, and how long you can keep pushing, right?
Yep.
So yeah, I think that could be like a good book for anyone to read.
No, that's great. Great recommendation. The headspace, mindset, mental stamina. We've used a lot of words here on this show that can help the listener, but it is true. And I don't know what the percentage is, 50%, 90%, but it feels like a lot bigger percentage is mindset and just sheer, like, how am I dealing with certain things here first and then as an external expression. And I think that you're right. If you can get that piece of it right, there's just so many more things that just kind of just lay down that aren't real obstacles as long as you can get the headspace right. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, 100%. 100%.
Okay. What do you think about intentionally networking or masterminding with other entrepreneurs?
Man, I had a period in my life where I was like, I don't have time for this. I'm too busy. And listen,
Yep.
it's so valuable and it's so important. And it's shocking when you've been out of it for a period of time and you come back and you realize the conversations you can have, how you can help each other, everything from like getting the best talent to, of course, like everything's a network on top of that. If you want to get external investment and financing, like you need to know the right people. So it's shocking how, going to have a social fun time at a network can actually be business, but it is extremely important.
Yeah. It's interesting once you have that recognition, how much more you see it in everything, because you see, the social event or whatever, but then you see the strategy inside of building relationship, which doesn't have to be like cookie cutter strategy. It's just, it can be genuine. It can be authentic, but that's what it starts with is we came together, but then out of that built a relationship. And then, we invested or we did a deal together. You found a co-founder, so forth and so on.
100%. 100%.
I got a question for you about family. I know you got a family, you got some kiddos. We talked about our kiddos before we hit the record button. And for you as a extremely high driving entrepreneur, one with lots of stamina and energy and excitement around what you're doing, and just like this press, this constant press, I can only imagine. How have you over the years been able to do just that same exact kind of energy and passion with your family? I'll tell you a quick belief that I have. I don't believe in balance. I don't believe that there's this like tightrope of family and marriage over here and business over here. And like, I'm constantly, just forget that. What I need to do is go hard after all of it. So how have you done that?
So complete transparency. I do have periods of times where I feel like, God, I need another 20 hours a week for work. And if I only could have like another 2 days a weekend with my kids. But hey, it's just because everything is so fun and I want more of it, But I don't know. I'm lucky. I count my blessings every day. I feel like I have like two really fun kids and husband, and we get to spend the mornings and the weekends together, and then I have a lot of fun at work. I wouldn't work this hard if I didn't have so much fun doing what I do. Right. So I don't know if I have an answer. I really do get into the bucket of like, I need more hours in the week for both. Yeah. But we do it all. We're out there and we're, spending time with friends and we're traveling and we take the kids to activities and then we run this company. I'm on your side. I think you just need to go for it and make it happen. We had this crazy fall where my husband spent a ton of time in London. So we had a travel schedule of being in LA and Stockholm and London and with school and work. And I guess, it happened and we made it
seemingly impossible, but it happened.
Yeah. So I don't know. It's like maybe a bit of it's like, don't think of it so much, but just do it. And I do think there's a thing of like more experiences in life wins. So I think also actually both me and my husband have that as like, more experiences wins, even if it feels like it's impossible and like a lot of work to do it all. Yep. In the end, it's always more fun to get more experiences.
Yeah. Yeah. And the experiences can be the fun part. It can be the with the kids part. It could be the traveling part. It could be the stressful, like, let's figure it out because that's how you learn problem solving part. I think that all of those different tug and pull situations that you just described are super important. Louise, I got one last question here for you. This might sound a little odd because you're still a young entrepreneur, but if you could whisper in the younger Louise's ear, what would you say?
Oh, I've had that question a few times as well. I'm like, Jesus, what's a smart thing to say? You know what? I think it's like for anyone, I think it's probably the best thing you can hear, just you're doing it.
Yeah.
It's so easy to think that we're smart now. And I'm just saying this because it's funny. I started doing like a yearly journaling every New Year's when I was 21. And
Okay.
I look back now at like 21-year-old Louise. I'm like, oh God, you thought that was hard and that was difficult. Well, you have no idea what life has like in
Yeah.
store for you.
Yep.
And I'm probably going to say the same thing in 15 years again from
Right.
where I'm sitting now.
Yep.
So listen, this has been so fun to like chat about business and like my experience. I'm sure we have so many listeners that actually I could learn from. And
Right.
I know that I know, like in the grand scheme of things, nothing, which is what makes life so amazing. And like stay
Right.
curious and learn is what we're here for.
That's right.
But I don't know, like everyone has their journey. We all end up where we are supposed to. So I think the one thing any younger generation could just need is just like you're doing it. You're gonna do whatever you need to. You're gonna end up exactly where you need to be.
Yeah. Would you knowing that basically kind of the chips fall where they may, that's kind of what I just kind of took from what it was. What were you giving yourself permission to just go for it? Or was it take even more risk? Or like what is maybe the tangible tactical that the younger Louise would go about?
It's so hard. I don't know. I think it's really hard. Like I this is a longer conversation, Chaz. I don't believe in free will. I don't
Okay.
I don't think we actually have free will necessarily. So
Okay.
all the decisions that we make is like this makeup of like the experience that we have since before, and like, you know, how we read the world at the moment in time. Well,
Yeah.
it's a long conversation, but that's why like I think anyone looking back on themselves just like needs to be really kind to themselves.
Yeah.
We did the best we could with what we knew and what we had to work with.
Yep.
And there may have been things that I should have done better, or like I should have like taken bigger risks, or I should have
Sure.
left that company earlier. Like, of course,
Right.
I made a million mistakes, but also we also just like, man, we judge, oneself so hard all the time, and we need
Yeah.
to be really, really kind to ourselves and our past selves that we've done the best we could.
Yeah. There's no rewriting those chapters now, right?
Yeah, yeah. So I'm
Good
sorry, it's
stuff.
not like a good soundbite answer, but it's
No,
a
it's
tricky one.
hey, look, that's why I asked the question, because I want it to be authentic. And so I think that if anything, you've given us a couple things to mull over as we come across just like a mind-blowing conversation with an incredible entrepreneur. So Louise, how can they find you? They want to shop. Number one, how can they find you? You've already given us the
Yeah,
website, but give us a little promo here. And then how can they find you if they want to pick your brain and maybe do a deal with you?
yeah. Cool. Well, yeah, come see us at martie.com, Martie. That can be a question sometimes if it's a Y or not, but it's not, martie.com. And then come find me at LinkedIn. I know my last name is a bit tricky, and my first name can be tricky too. Louise, everyone's like, you're not 89 years old. We're a Mexican man. How does it work? But listen, in Europe, this is a very trendy name, I promise. I promise. In Europe, I'm like super trendy. It's just
I'm
really weird
dying over
here.
here. This is amazing. Well, if I can
So
say your last name, surely they can type it and find you on LinkedIn. But don't worry,
yeah,
we'll put the link in the show notes. They can just click and find you.
sweet. Yeah,
Wow. What a way to end it with a ginormous smile and a laugh. You've been sensational. Thank you so much for being here.
Chaz. It's
The
been fun.
listeners would be silly not to go back and listen to this one again and reach out and take advantage of this new connection in their network. So thank you for being here. Blessings on your family and your kids and
Thank
your
you.
husband and all the things that you have your hand to with Martie. Thank you for being here.
I appreciate it.
Thank you for listening to Gathering the Kings today. I hope that you were able to pull out a few nuggets to go apply into your business right away. More importantly, though, I hope that you're realizing that it takes more to be successful than just being by yourself, doing it all on your own, carrying the weight all by yourself. What I have realized, not only in my own journey from multiple businesses and multiple different industries, and now interviewing literally over 200 or 300 other very successful 7, 8, and 9-figure business owners, is that it's tough to do it alone. And so Gathering the Kings literally exists to bring together successful entrepreneurs. In fact, we are putting together 1,000 kings, specifically who are grateful but not done. We're intentionally assembling kings who fight tooth and nail for their business, family, and communities. And here's what we believe, that in the pursuit of excellence in those areas, that it ignites within us the responsibility to govern power and forge a lasting legacy. So if that relates and resonates with you, and you know that you need people around you, sharp, qualified, other very successful business owners, I want you to go to gatheringthekings.com. I want you to take a look at what we're doing and see if it makes sense for you to be part of our pursuit to 1,000 kings. Talk soon.